for joining us this evening for the Vaping in Teens 101 webinar for parent and other caring adults. My name is Angie and I'm in 10th grade, and I'm here representing Courage along with a couple of our other members. I'm excited to be here with all of you this evening. We know that your time is valuable and we appreciate you for spending some of it with us. Spanish translation for this webinar is available. Instructions on how to access the translation channel will be given now.
Paso 1. Asegúrese de tener la aplicación más actualizada de cliente, del Zoom cliente para computadoras o teléfonos celulares. El canal intérprete no funciona con navegadores de la web. Usted puede descargar la aplicación del Zoom cliente en el siguiente enlace: zoom.us/download. Paso 2. Participe en el seminario en línea de Zoom utilizando la aplicación Zoom Cliente desde su computadora o teléfono celular. Paso 3. Haga clic en el icono que parece un globo del mundo o de la Tierra. Paso 4. Seleccione el idioma adecuado. En este momento, en este punto, tendría usted la opción de silenciar el audio original para que solo escuche la traducción.
Everyone, my name is Philip Cow and I'm in 12th grade. Our use of the term tobacco throughout this presentation refers to commercial tobacco products and not to sacred and traditional use of tobacco by some Native American communities. In addition to that, we would like to acknowledge that this event is being held on the traditional lands of the Yokuts, Karkin, Confederated villages of the Lishawn, Ohlone, Miwok, and the Milwaukee peoples.
Hi, my name is Lahana and I'm a part of TUPE and I'm in 11th grade. Tobacco Youth Prevention Education, or TUPE for short, is a program with the Student Programs Department in the Contra Costa County of Education. Our goal is to prevent and reduce tobacco among young people, and this includes the most popular tobacco products on the market, e-cigarettes and vape pens. The County Office TUPE team provides technical assistance to school districts to development and implement effective comprehensive tobacco education programs. The team works alongside all 18 school districts in our county, as well as to provide direct services to students in our own county office programs. They partner with hundreds of adults and young people who are part of a larger TUPE network, including district administrators, site-level coordinators, curriculum instructors, intervention providers, community partners, hundreds of student peer educators, and Courage Youth Coalition groups to implement tobacco programs across the county.
It was established through a partnership between the Contra Costa County Office of Education and the Center for Human Development. Courage is a youth advocacy coalition comprised of 38 students, 8th through 12th graders from all over Contra Costa County. Courage stands for Our Advocacy, Generation, and Education. Courage is a youth-centered and directed leadership and advocacy group working to address issues around prevention of youth tobacco, cannabis, prescription drug, and alcohol use and abuse. We use our voices to educate and present to local decision makers and at youth conferences and parent events like this webinar, and we support an annual countywide public service announcements contest and film festival.
Before we begin, I would like to review a few logistics. You may notice that this presentation is being recorded. However, all attendees are muted and not on video. The webinar recording will be made available to everyone via email following the presentation, so you guys will all have access to all the information shared tonight. We ask that you guys please utilize the Q&A box to submit questions. We will monitor the Q&A box throughout the whole presentation and also have time set aside after the presentation to respond to these questions. We appreciate those of you guys who have already submitted questions during registration. We have included responses to many of those questions within the presentation. We will utilize the polling feature, which will help us allow us to gather more information that is anonymous feedback from all of you guys. And as we ask that you guys please participate if you guys are able to do so. We will provide key resource links via the chat box, and by the end of the presentation in the webinar, they'll also be sent out to all the attendees via email following the presentation. Lastly, you have the option to respond to a quick survey when you leave the webinar, so please take a few minutes to provide your feedback.
I think tonight are Nicole Square and Derek Kirk, TUPE Youth Development Specialists. TUPE Youth Development Specialists train and support hundreds of middle school and high school students each year who then apply their new knowledge and educate their school communities about the dangers of tobacco and inspire others to make healthy decisions. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you so much, Ahana. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you all for joining us. Let's go ahead and get the presentation started. we're going to be covering this evening all the latest and greatest, not greatest, but the latest new products out. And we'll be looking at and talking about vape pens, of course, and ways in which adults can support. But first, let's go ahead and ask and start a poll question. At what age is the brain considered fully developed? So it looks like the majority of people got the answer correct. And that is 25. So the brain fully develops at the age of 25. This is really important because our young people are not 25 years of age, and this makes their brain extremely susceptible to substances that are introduced to it. Next slide, please. So, excuse me, here we'll cover the tobacco products that are out, the impact of vaping on and cannabis on young people, and of course, share ways that caring adults can support young people in their lives. So, as I was saying, we're talking about young people, their brains are still developing, and you may not know that our brains actually develop from the back, from your the brainstem to the front, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is our executive decision-making skills, which helps us to see long-term and how our decisions that we're making can play out in the long term. And this happens at 25. And this makes a young person's brain extremely vulnerable to substances that are introduced before that time. Next slide. So we have another poll question for you. Let's go ahead and launch that. What percentage of Contra Costa County 11th graders report current vaping? The perception seems to be quite high, and I think that that's because if you have young people in your life, you're probably hearing stories from them about what that looks like on school sites, but let's actually look at the data and what's being reported. So here you can see the graph, and this is our most current data that we have. Well, this is actually looking, excuse me, at 5 years, which has the 2022-2023 California Healthy Schools data. And as you can see, it kind of peaked here in 2018, 2019, but it went down during the 2020. It started to drop in 2019. And then we've been seeing, unfortunately, a rise again in 2020 to 2021. And just in case you cannot see it, the blue line is grade 7, the orange line is grade 9, and the gray line is grade 11. So for 11th graders, they currently, or in the year of 2022 to 2023, had an 8% usage of vape pens. Next slide, please. And that was looking at the county, Contra Costa County. This is some data that's actually national data. This data is coming from a 2022 survey, and this is looking at tobacco products. So as you can see, about 16% of youth are reporting that they're using some type of tobacco product. And as you can see, by far, unfortunately, the tobacco product that they're using the most is e-cigarettes, otherwise known as vape pens. The next one is cigars, also little cigars and cigarillos. So this is, we gave you Contra Costa data, and this is a larger look at national data. Next slide. So we're talking about young people. We want to make sure that we're listening to young people. So we have an amazing panel of young people that introduced us, and we really want to hear from them about what they're seeing. So from your perspective, how has tobacco use, including vaping, changed over your high school experience?
From my perspective, I can say that you have to be way more self-conscious in high school, and that kind of takes away, you don't get to go to a lot of parties or anything like that because it's so, you have the risk of being exposed to many of these things. Not only that, is that I feel like my high school experience was a little taken back because I don't get to go a lot to high school parties and all that because of all the recent news about how there's an increase in tobacco use and vaping products. As well as you can see it in our school campus itself, that our campus is very small. So in the bathrooms, especially, you can see there's a lot of smoking going on. And I think that it takes the point of even having a high school bathroom because you can see that the smoke is taking up everything, and people who have asthma or even any respiratory issues who enter the bathrooms and they can't even do their business and leave because of all the smoke around here. Thank you.
I've seen vaping have a really big impact on my school, and many teens are turning to vaping in school bathrooms instead of attending class. And I also feel like vaping is being introduced to kids early and earlier. So many students come to our school and they're exposed to environments and peer pressure that makes them turn to tobacco use. And I've even heard of like middle schoolers beginning to vape at their schools. And because of that, peer pressure is also a big factor. So if the popularity of vaping is growing, more people are pressured to start. And so I've just seen the prevalence of vaping and peer pressure really grow at my school.
For me, in my perspective, I feel like tobacco, especially vaping, has changed over my high school experience, in a great amount. I remember starting in my freshman year in high school. It was even before my freshman year in high school, sorry. In eighth grade, I remember going to my high school for a freshman orientation, and that was the first time I ever saw a vape on the ground. This was even before I was in high school, so I feel like from when I started in when I first saw that in eighth grade to where I am now, I think there's been a huge shift and change. Also, I think it's very similar to kind of what I was when an underclassmen, but definitely in the bathrooms is where I see a lot of people smoking nicotine, vaping a lot, using marijuana, but also all of that contributing to like ruining the bathroom and the bathroom etiquette. I remember countless of times I've gone to the bathroom and it's always been shut down a lot of times due to like vaping, also vandalism and just like overall chaos. In addition to that, I think it's very easy to get a hold of vaping and just like tobacco products because of social media. There's always like new devices, new flavors, and also how small nicotine products are. It's really easy to actually purchase those things and hide them from parents and just hide them from teachers as a whole. I've even seen like TikTok videos on like how to even hide those devices, like through using like an Arizona green tea where people put their devices in there, or like having like little like invisible products or like disguisable products. I know all of that is used to make revenue and like make money, but also I think it also causes more addiction in the long run. But yeah, definitely I've seen tobacco growing a lot, especially in my school and in my community. As I've gotten older, I feel like a lot of exposure to that is because I'm a senior now, whether it be like parties, events, or just like school related incidents where parental figures aren't really available or just necessarily present in that environment.
Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you, Ahana, Angie. I think it's really important that we are listening to young people and having those conversations and seeing what they're seeing on school sites. And Philip, you set up the next slide perfectly because we're going to take a look now at some vape products that are hidden. And so I'm asking the people in our audience to just take a few seconds and look at the photo. How many vape products, how many tobacco products do you think you can spot? Go ahead and take a mental count. I'm going to just give you a few seconds to really look at the picture. Some of them you may not think. And as Philip was saying, young people are sharing ways in which they can hide these products. And unfortunately, big tobacco is creating these products to be more, what is the word, easily hidden, inconspicuous, so that adults aren't aware that they are vape pens. So hopefully you've had a couple seconds to try and count how many of these tobacco products you see in this picture. You may be surprised. If we can show the next slide, we'll show you just how many are there. So there's actually 7. And I want to kind of point out a couple of these. The first one coming out of the pencil bag, a lot of people miss this one completely. This is actually, it is a vape pen, actually looks more like a wax pen. 2, a lot of people, my mother actually thought that this was, if you used to use those like pencils that had like the extra lead in it, she thought that's what it was. And I had to explain to her that it's not. Up at the top next to hand sanitizer, right? It looks a lot like hand sanitizer. That's actually e-juice. That's what can be put in vape pens. Another one I want to point out is number 5 and number 1, the yellow, and the one that's coming out of the computer. These are meant to look like USBs. We've unfortunately had adults helping young people, or some charging it because they had no idea that it was a vape pen. They thought it was a USB. So just, we wanted to show you that vape pens come in many different shapes and sizes and colors, and they are made to be hidden, unfortunately. So just keep an eye out for that. As I said, vape pens come in many forms and shapes, but they all have the same components. They all run off a battery, whether it be a disposable where it's throwaway or rechargeable. They have something called an atomizer or coil. This is actually what's heating up the e-liquid. And as I showed you in the last slide, the e-liquid is a little bottle of juice, or sometimes it already comes in the vape pens and you can't see the juice itself, but they all have e-liquid, which has some levels of nicotine. And this is held in some type of cartridge or a tank. And something that we always make very clear to people is the industry has tried really hard to market these products as vape pens or a healthier alternative, that it is vapor and it's somehow cleaner. It's not. It's actually an aerosol. So we want to make sure that people are understanding this is not some kind of clean water evaporation that's happening in vape pens. It's an aerosol. It's more like a perfume, thousands of chemicals being held in a gas that unfortunately people aren't taking into their lungs. Next slide. So I'm going to quickly go over the product history. Although e-cigarettes or vape pens are fairly new to the market in comparison with like combustible cigarettes, there has been a lot of change over time. So they started out looking more like a combustible cigarette. Fortunately, we had done a really good job in telling young people that cigarettes are bad for you. And so when they saw it looking like a cigarette, young people were not attracted to it. And big tobacco, unfortunately, started creating more devices. And then vape pens and wax pens came out. And as you can see, they look really similar. One holds, the vape pen holds what would be a nicotine product. Wax pens are holding something, are holding a cannabis product. So they look very similar, but holding 2 different products inside. The next ones that came onto the market were mods. These are much larger. We don't see these a lot among our young people, but they are out there. They can be modified. These are much more expensive. They have a larger tank and a larger battery, and you can put your own e-juice into the tanks. And unfortunately, the most used by young people today are pod-based systems. Now, Juul was the first one to make a pod-based system. They have adapted and changed over time, and I'm going to break those down now. Next slide, please. So within our pod systems, because these are unfortunately what young people are using today, this is a picture of blue, very similar to Juul. You had to purchase, whether you had a Juul or any other pod-based system, you had to purchase the pod to match the actual device to use. During COVID and during the Trump administration, they actually put a ban on flavors for the pod, so Juul couldn't sell like the creme brulee flavor in the pod. And then so we started seeing these other pod-based systems come onto the market. One was a open system, more like a mod, where you could add your own e-liquid and e-juice too. But unfortunately, the one that Derek and I see the most, which young people tell us about the most, are these disposables. Now, the disposables come pre-charged. They come with the e-liquids already in them. They do now have some disposables that are rechargeable, but this product is coming charged and with the e-juice and the high levels of nicotine already in them at the point of purchase. Next slide, please. This is a slide to show some of the pod-based systems. As you can see, they look different sizes, but also take a look at the prices. These are fairly cheap devices to come across. We're seeing a lot of these on our school campuses, and young people will be able to talk about that in just a second. But we just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot look at these devices, what they look like, and how cheaply they can be purchased by young people. And this is some data that is showing kind of what products and devices are being used by young people. This is among middle and high school students within the last 30 days. This is from 2021. And as you can see to the top left, disposable e-cigarettes among high school, middle school, that is what's being used most. Next slide, please. So let's hear from our students once again, because I can talk about what we're seeing, but let's hear from them on what they're seeing. So what tobacco products are you seeing being used by your peers, and how is this impacting them?
So the most common products that I've been seeing being used are vapes, because vapes are the most accessible products to get. And as Nicole talked about, vapes can be easily hidden and disguised to look like everyday products, which allows them to easily move around school. And vapes come in many flavors that are attractive to kids. There are many trends around vaping, and it has a large presence on social media. Many people are sharing vapes in the bathroom and exchanging them. And vaping can be detrimental to their health. I've seen students develop asthma due to vaping, and it affects their performance in school too. I've seen students ditching class and disrupting people to go to the bathroom to vape. There's also a peer pressure to turn to addictive substances. So vaping disrupts not only the people affected, but students too. And so our school only has one main bathroom, and it has been shut down or inaccessible due to the amount of vaping and fumes. So overall, vaping is impacting the mental and physical health of students.
Some tobacco products I'm seeing being frequently used by youth is definitely, like Angie said, like vaping, nicotine products. I've seen vape pens, weed pens, flumes, stizzies, and even more. I mostly see them at like bathrooms or even at parties, and even sometimes in the classroom. I think for me, even using the bathrooms, I've always had made me like uncomfortable at my high school through because it's always crowded. The restroom is filled with boys like yelling together, being destructive, and even like saying slurs and vandalizing the bathroom as a whole, which has made me want to avoid using the bathroom. But as a whole, I think these products, even if I don't really know the names or what they contain, I know that they're really addicting due to their chemicals, the amount of nicotine they contain, but also how addicted they are. I've seen young teens and even middle schoolers using these products. They've been hiding them from their parents. They've been stealing them. They've been even stealing their parents' monies to purchase these products, just to purchase nicotine and tobacco products. I think it's really damaging for our youth and their future, their bodies, how addicting and brain altering tobacco products can become for such young teens. Yeah, most importantly, I think for addictive students, the negative effects has caused a huge reliance on nicotine for them to use it on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's become and has developed them to have a high tolerance for like nicotine and the chemicals that are in it. I know people just like smoke, not even feel the buzz anymore because they just like have done it for so long. It's like a habitual thing that they do every single day. And I feel like it's caused like a shift in their daily routine. It's really dangerous and harmful. And I feel like it's kind of comparable to even like water or food. Like they need to do it every single day. They needed to do it to survive, even they say. I know people who, even if they lose their like vape pen, they like yell and scream until they find it. But as a whole, definitely nicotine has become so impactful in our community. Teens have become so addicted to it, and they have to do it in bathrooms and places where they're not even supposed to.
What tobacco products that I normally see are basically vape products or something that's very small and you can hide it easily because schools they're catching on to the fact that youth are doing it. They just don't know really how to prove it. So now that the school is catching on, the youth are also catching on. So they always try to get discrete products. So they have stuff like it looks like a USB drive, for example, like we saw in the example. There's also like erasers. There can be like little lead cases and all that. I also think one of the bigger things is the flavors that are being put out there because nowadays there is more flavors than there were compared to like before when it was just like strawberry, banana. The flavors have gotten a lot of creative, so I feel like now that the youth are getting addicted, they also have addictive flavors that they can get addicted to. And these products are being seen to be used in bathrooms. I know we had an incident in my freshman year where they were doing it at the back of the English classroom, and the teacher caught them, and that was the one and only time that someone was actually being able to be caught with them because of how much they're catching on and they're actually starting to become more smarter about what they're using. Overall, I think it's impacting them in a way that they feel like they have to depend on it. So whether it's like having a bad day, they go and they'll hit their vape. If they're having a sad day, they go and hit their vape. So I feel like they're not really having any other connection other than what they're using, and it's impacting their mental health.
So much, Ahana, and leads perfectly into the next slide, which is great. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and do another poll for you. And so let's go ahead and put that up. True or false? Do you think all tobacco products contain the same amount of nicotine? That is actually false. All nicotine products do not have the same amount of nicotine. They actually have quite a bit of drastic difference, and we're going to go over that now. Next slide, please. So if I were in person, I'd first start off with how many people know somebody that's addicted to cigarettes? We can say, I think everybody can agree that we probably know somebody that's been addicted to cigarettes. Cigarettes have been addicting people for decades. The average smoker smokes about a pack of cigarettes a day. Now, cigarettes have 22 milligrams of nicotine in one pack of cigarettes. And as I said, I think we can all agree that we know that this amount of nicotine has been addicting people for decades. When Juul came on the market, we started to see young people using Juul, and we also started to see high levels of addiction and addictive behaviors happening with young people. And there's a reason. When they started testing how much nicotine was in Juul, we saw that one Juul pod had 41.3 milligrams of nicotine. That's equivalent to about 37 cigarettes. So that's almost double the amount of nicotine that one pack of cigarettes has. So we started to see, again, the addiction in young people. When Derek and we work with young people all across the county, after we came out of quarantine and we're back on school sites, we started talking to young people and we heard about flu. And we were completely surprised this new product that had come out during quarantine, at least that we started seeing in our county during quarantine. It is a little bit larger than Juul, so it holds more e-juice. But this one Flume product has 400 milligrams of nicotine in it, one product. And that's equivalent to about 363 cigarettes. So that's a far comparison from the 22 milligrams of nicotine that's found in one pack of cigarettes. Now, currently, we're unfortunately seeing a newer product on the market become popular with young people, which is Elf Bar. And we were completely blown away by the levels of nicotine in Flume. And then when Elf Bar came on the market, we saw that it has 650 milligrams of nicotine. That's equivalent to 590 cigarettes. So as you can see, the levels of nicotine in these products are nowhere near the same. Also, there is no regulation on how much nicotine they can add to these products. And if we can see the trend that's happening, I think the next product will have more nicotine in it. The trends have been adding more nicotine to these products. And unfortunately, once there's more nicotine in these products, the nicotine allows for young people to get addicted, more addicted to these products. And we're seeing it in young people. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the health effects. We've heard from the young people about some of the social and emotional impacts that are happening, that they're seeing in their peers. But the health effects are really important, and they can also be seen too. So first, I think people first and foremost think of the impact to your lungs when you're talking about tobacco products, and that's absolutely correct. There is lung damage, whether it be a combustible cigarette or a vape pen. There is lung damage happening. Thousands of chemicals are being ingested and inhaled into the lungs, which does damage. But what a lot of people don't think about is the pressure that it's putting on their cardiovascular system, their heart. A lot of the industry has tried to make it about calming you down. Actually, nicotine raises your heart rate, so it puts extra pressure on your heart and your cardiovascular system. A lot of people also don't think about your impact to your sinuses, your nose, throat, mouth, right? These chemicals are being inhaled and do damage to, just like with combustible cigarettes, they're doing damage to your nose, throat, mouth. And last but not least, it's your brain. The nicotine, the addiction, that all starts in your brain. And there's more studies happening, but there's still a lot of studies to show that the impact of vaping on the body, whether it be combustible cigarettes or vape pens especially, have a real negative impact on the developing brain as young people are growing. And we really need to keep in mind on that it is impacting their whole body. Next slide. Some of the things that are found in the aerosol of vape pens. I don't think people realize when we talk to young people about this, because we train young people to teach other young people, they have no idea some of the things that are found in aerosol. I'm just going to highlight a couple, and that's acetone. If you've ever gotten your nails done or taken somebody's nail polish off, that's nail polish remover, right? Also, a lot of people don't think about the nickel, the tin, the copper, the chromium, the aluminum, all of these metals that are in these products, and they're finding tiny particles of metal are breaking off from these products and being inhaled into the lungs. Also, arsenic, poisons, right? If they are bold and underlined, these are carcinogens. These are known compounds to cause harmful substances and cause cancer. Next slide, please. A thing that I think a lot of people do not realize, and unfortunately we're hearing anecdotally, is adolescents who vape are actually 4 times more likely to report smoking combustible cigarettes. There's many different reasons, but the studies are showing that adolescents who vape are unfortunately 4 times more likely to then switch to a combustible cigarette, which is what we absolutely do not want. Next slide. Here's a quick video on how some of these products are being seen by young
Whoa!
We showed these kids some products purchased at a nearby store and asked them what they thought.
Ooh, this is cool. We all picked up the same thing.
What they didn't know is that each one was a tobacco product.
Oh, I think it's a grape. I see that right there. And look at mine. It smells like gum. Yummy. This one looks super cool. Ooh, this looks pretty. Shiny. It smells like strawberry. I'll say these are my favorite. Blueberries. Animal. Got 2 animals. Animal. Ugh, are these mints? Hey, look at this one.
The tobacco industry spends nearly $1 million an hour marketing its addictive and deadly products.
Pink is one of my favorite colors.
With brightly colored packaging and fruit and candy flavors that kids love, who do you think they're targeting?
Could I have one? How about we each get 2? Wait, I found them now. We get to keep any.
And I think that video pretty much speaks for itself. This is really impactful when young people see it, because most people have a young brother or sister or cousin that they can relate to. They're not of reading age, but they know what's happening, right? So when we talk to young people, we ask young people, what's the main reason that young people would try using a vape product? And it's pretty clear from the video, right? And the number one reason that a lot of young people talk about is the flavors. And we're going to show you some of the flavors that are on the market. There's over 15,000 flavors on the market. As Ahana was talking about, these flavors are not for adults as much as the industry would like to say that they're marketing to adults, that they're not trying to target young people. I think we can all agree that Psycho Kitty and Hulk Tears and Minion are probably not what adults are interested in. But this might be something that a young person would want to try. And as I showed you in previous slides, with the high levels of nicotine, it's easy for them to get addicted. So let's go to, in California, we passed Prop 31. It passed in November of 2022. And voters upheld as the Senate bill that passed 793, which prohibits the sale of certain flavored tobacco products, passed by a landslide in Contra Costa County and statewide. The unfortunate thing is the enforcement piece of it is not there. In all, what I will say is not there to the extent in all areas, right? Some counties, some cities are able to do it a little bit differently. It's been asked of them to figure out how to enforce it. So unfortunately, we are still seeing flavored products in the hands of young people. They may not be displayed. They may be sold in other ways, whether it be under the counter or in different ways, but we are really excited about the prop passing, and hopefully we will start to see the impact on young people and the flavors not being seen there. But as of right now, flavors are still on the market and young people are still having access to them, unfortunately.
All right, so I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, folks. So we're gonna talk about tobacco and vaping and what we're seeing. And there is a crossover when it comes to cannabis and marijuana. So we're going to start by looking at the percentage of Contra Costa 11th graders that report using. So we will launch a poll. This is the correct one. We're going to launch a poll on this one for you to give your input on what percentage you think of the 11th graders in the county are using marijuana. Majority of people are looking at that 20% and that 11%. Okay. And so here's what we're actually seeing in the county. Here's what our numbers are in the county. So we're talking about marijuana usage coming from our timeline. This is also taken from 2018, 2019 to last school year. As you can see, very similar to tobacco and vaping. The numbers kind of went down. They kind of jumped back up a little bit, and they're hovering right now, and especially with California have legalization and normalization of recreational cannabis. The template, the outlook of it is different from our state compared to the next. But right now, the numbers are pretty low. We want to keep them lower or bring them lower because we want young people to get an understanding that it's not safe. Because many times when we start talking about tobacco and vaping, cannabis is the next part of the conversation, is right next door. So in this, just kind of getting a snapshot, the majority of young people aren't using. And then overall, if we're looking nationally, it's only 1 in 4. 25% of high schoolers are using cannabis. It might seem more inflated. That's why people tend to overestimate, because it's glorified on social media. Young people aren't putting the stuff they do over the weekend. It's kind of lame. They always high post is, oh, I use cannabis, we smoke some weed, we have some gas. Like, they put that out there, and sometimes we project that more young people are using it. So not only adults, young people do this too. I just had a training today. I said, hey, what percentage of high schoolers you think smoke or vape? Kids don't know, 80, 95, 75. I'm like, really? You're going to include the AP students too? So the number is a lot lower. So I don't want people walking there and going, this pandemic. No, it's less young people are using, but we do want to get them to understand the dangers and the things that surrounding when it comes to cannabis, and also in conjunction with tobacco. So when we're looking at cannabis, there's multiple forms. Traditionally, it was smoked. You have a blunt that you roll over there on the left. That's where you take tobacco. You take a tobacco product like a little cigarillo, you hollow it out, replace it with cannabis, re-roll it. That's where you have a blunt. And then smoking it, you have a joint, bong. We are seeing forms of vape, and I'm going to share with you shortly different forms of vaping, cannabis and tobacco. Cannabis, we're seeing very potent forms of them. So vaping is around for sure. And then, of course, edibles is something we have to include with our young people, because there has been an uptick of what's been exposed and been used. I know some of you driven down the 4, you've seen ads for cocoa farms. It's plastic everywhere. So normalization is there, and young people sometimes get that message. So we have to give them the understanding that it's not completely safe. It's not just a plant. And so in this, those levels of THC hit their body. So when we're talking about vaping THC, it's very similar to the effects of somebody smoking cannabis. Like if they're smoking it, you're getting effects of, red eyes, munchies, cotton mouth, those kind of things. Very similar when it comes to vaping THC. Difficulty is it doesn't smell. It doesn't smell like that skunk smell. It doesn't smell like that strong, smoky, like you don't expect that you're gonna have that same smell on them or the odor that you would be used to. So in this, you got to kind of be on high alert. They will have the body responses, the side effects and such, but that potency of the smell is what you're not catching. And then there's also a high concentration of THC. So if you're looking at some of these products that are on screen right now, you have popular brands. Many times they mirror or mimic other companies or things that young people are familiar with. So you got to be on the lookout. That one that says Mario Kart, that cart right there, that's what you'll traditionally find at like a dispensary. They sell those cartridges, and they're usually like universal that like screws into a wax pen. The bottom part's like a battery, that part you recharge. The cartridge is what you buy separate from a dispensary. It usually has like a universal tip on the end. Stizzy is a popular brand of THC infused pods that snap into different devices. They make their own Stizzy devices as well as like generic ones. And then the ones on the right was surprising to me within like the last 4 years. They're now making disposable THC pods. So instead of having a cartridge that you would screw in or like the pod you snap in, these ones similar to like what Nicole was saying, like a Flume or Elf Bar, they come preloaded with THC in them with a certain amount of hits. So when you're done, you just kind of chuck it and throw it away. And so this doesn't require them to refill, doesn't require them to charge. They just use it at their leisure and throw it away. The one on the top is super scary to me. That one actually has 2 flavors. Like if you flip the button down, you can have Northern Lights. You flip it up, the flavor of the THC is blueberry. And so, of course, we're still seeing this play on flavors is attached even to talking about THC. So it's not just the traditional, I'm smoking the chronic kind, like it has flavors attached to it. So that also makes it that much more difficult to detect when young people are using. So when we're talking about the THC content, the levels, I want to take us back to the 19s, as the kids say. I had a kid tell me that the other day. He was born in the 19s. I want to hit a World War balloon. If you're born before the 2000s, you might be familiar with the group of people called hippies. They were using cannabis back in the day. They smoked it back in the 60s and such, and their weed got them high. But the weed that they were using back in the 60s was only about 1% to 2% THC. So you think about the ones that's playing the songs, kicking daffodils, singing and spinning. They got high back then, 1% to 2%. 1% to 2% THC still had the effect of them having high and everything that came with it. And then over the course of a couple of decades, cross-pollinating, finding out the female cannabis plant has more THC than a male, breeding a female on female, adding extra chemicals. Nowadays, the weed that their young people are smoking, if you went to a street level dealer and bought some weed from them, on average in Northern California, you're going to find it to have about 20 to 25% THC. Now, that's a huge leap. That's a big leap in the last half a century, right? And so when you start thinking about young people using, if your reference is back with Scooby-Doo and such, it's almost a completely different drug. And that level of THC hits the body different. And so you might find some young people going from feeling high to maybe possibly hallucinating because this high levels of THC is hitting your body. So that's just when you're talking about the combustible plant, right? Now, when we go into vaping it, these products are even more potent because they're drawing and extracting THC from it. Now, the ones on the screen, all 3 of those products we have at the office because we get confiscated devices when students get caught vaping or are using THC or products. Sometimes the VPs, principals, on-site security, they'll give the products to us so we can kind of like teach parents with them to see what's out there. And so these are some of the brands that we have. And you can't see it, might not be able to see it right away. If you're looking at the one in the middle, Stizzy is a very popular brand. That particular strain of Stizzy, that one had 86.5% THC. Yeah, you can clutch your pearls right now. It's a little scary. Yeah, 86.5. That's a lot. To go from 20 to 25, 86.5, that means a young person could take it out their pocket, hit it a couple times, put it back in their pocket. Within minutes, they're feeling the effects of that high. That's high level of THC. And then if they're using it on a regular, your body starts to build up the potency is not strong. Tolerance kicks in. The fire, that one is 90.3% THC. Yeah, I know. It's okay. And then the last one, it actually has Goku on it from Dragon Ball Z, a popular anime character. That one on the end, and as you can see, the flavor is Magic Melon. That one has 91% THC. So when we're talking about young people using, you gotta be cautious in telling them that this is not like traditional cannabis in the plant. They're extracting high levels of THC that are impacting young people's bodies, especially when they use it on a regular. And so in that, we have to look at what takes place in the body. So very similar to when it comes to smoking tobacco products, there's impact on different parts of the body, right? So of course, as Nicole was talking about, your lungs, anything smoke, any fire, if you're smoking cannabis, of course, it adds that tar plus other chemicals. But when you're vaping, those chemicals that come off the coil, the atomizer, as well as the chemicals in the solution, those stick inside the aerosol and they also stick to your lungs. So even though they exhale, every chemical doesn't come out. I want you to imagine if you've been in a room with so much spray aerosol and like Lysol in the air, you walk under it, you physically feel it land on you. So imagine when you inhale from these devices, the chemical goes in, you may exhale, but some of them get stuck to the inner walls, and those chemicals sitting there do long-term damage. So just like cigarettes and tobacco and vaping, when you're using cannabis in the aerosolized version, you still have impact on the body, especially lungs. And then of course, you do have that play and that pull upon your heart. Anytime you're adding in anything outside of oxygen, you're going to cause it to actually work harder and pump more. So you're putting upon and putting strain on the heart. And then, as we also know, when it comes to the brain, there has been studies that show that when you use cannabis before your brain is fully developed, not only does it have long-term impact, but you have also the increased possibility of addiction. So when we're talking to young people, yes, these products are legal to use when you're 21, but we want them to understand that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's a safe choice. We want to make a better health decision. Yeah. So in that, we've covered tobacco, vaping, cannabis, crossover with that aerosolization. In our office, we've seen this issue change over time, so we've had to address it from different angles to make sure it's well-rounded to protect and help our young people in the county. So what we do at the county office, first off, we have the tobacco-free schools policy. Every school in the county has a tobacco-free schools policy. When you walk up to the front door, you see a sign that says no tobacco, no vaping, no cannabis. Like those signs are positioned that it includes everybody who's on campus. It prohibits the use of any tobacco product, vaping. If it looks like a device, if it's not, if it doesn't even have nicotine in it, it's still included. Because right now, they got this whole weird thing going where people are vaping essential oils. Who is doing that and why they created it, I don't know. But they have products that's like vaping air and whatever. It doesn't have nicotine in it, but they want the simulation. Those products are also banned because they mirror or mimic tobacco products. So those shouldn't be on campus. This also applies to students, staff, and visitors. So it's not just students, it's not just staff, it's visitors. Anyone who comes on campus, they're not allowed to have a tobacco product or anything that resembles it. And then we also, through the county office, we also model the alternative suspension. We don't advocate that when students get caught, say, hey, kid, you were caught vaping in the bathroom, get out of here, go home and think about it. No, because what's going to happen, little Johnny's going to go home and vape some more. And we don't want that to happen. We want them to have the support, especially if they may be struggling or if this is an issue that they have leading to addiction. We want to support our young people. And so to end that, our TUPE program has blossomed. Over the years, we were just giving education and prevention, but we've had to grow with the need of what we're seeing in the county. So first, we do have classroom-based curriculum. We start in middle school. We offer it for high school. This is where students in the county, in the districts that we are servicing directly, they get the curriculum to give them an understanding, not only the curriculum about what's in the products, what the products are, refusal skills, and interacting with other peers when it comes to peer pressure. That's covered in that those classes that are taught. And then we have youth development, which is what me and Nicole do. We train students to be on-campus superstars. Basically, we train them to go in to teach other students about not using and the dangers of tobacco and vaping products. And studies have shown that sites that have TUPE on campus actually has less percentage of users on campus. So that's a positive. And we see it in our county. The model has grown to where we're training more and more students a year. They're getting excited. They go on their campus, they do presentations, they walk away giving information to their local peers and campuses. And then we have intervention and cessation. We have somebody on staff. We have Marissa Frias, who's on our team. She helps out when students are caught, when students are struggling, if they need assistance. We train people throughout the county at school sites to do brief intervention. There's programs that you can do with students who may be struggling and wrestling. So we want to make sure we're not only giving them information and prevention, we want to help those who are using, because we know some of our young people are struggling. So we have that as a separate arm. And then we do staff professional development. So not only do we target the young people on campus to help them be aware with prevention, we talk to staff on campus to get them information, as well as do presentations to them of what these products look like. I just did one last week. I was presenting to a high school, and as I'm holding up different products that have been confiscated, you got light bulbs going off, and the teacher's like, oh, I seen one of those. I didn't know what it is. So what tends to happen after we do these presentations, they're more aware of what's taking place on campus. So in this is being able to identify as well as help our students and staff on the campus. And then lastly, we do family and community engagement. That's what we're doing right now. Thank you for joining us. We're giving information to parents because we don't want just the school be aware. We want you to know what's happening at home, what's taking place with young people in school. So even with this, at the end of this presentation, you can go talk to a young person like, hey, I just sat through an hour whole presentation, webinar, talk about tobacco and vaping. What do you know, young person in my life whom I love? And they may be able to give you more insight to what we can't even tell you, because this is happening in real time. We can go down a list of everything that happens with traditional combustible tobacco. When it comes to vaping, it's a moving target. It changed by the month. New products are coming out. New things are happening. Trends are taking place. Young people are right in the forefront of it. So just opening up that place of dialogue, you may find out something more from your young person. And speaking of young people, we need to get some input here. So pulling it back into our Courage members who are superheroes themselves. I want to be like them when I grow up. I got a question for you all if you want to chime in. How can a parent or other caring adult best approach a young person who they suspect may be using tobacco and or cannabis? Can you chime in? I think I'm gonna throw it to Philip first.
Yeah, for me, I definitely think that how a parent or like caring adult could best approach a person who they suspect to be using tobacco or cannabis is first off definitely education. I think education is so important for students and young people to realize that the effects and chemicals that they are putting into their bodies by smoking frequently and even at all. I think providing them with like a sense of reality and like a reality check on what they're doing, but also like helping students become afraid from even starting in the first place. I think counseling is really important, bringing off real life stories, experiences, showing them like short films, movies, posters, anything to wake them up. Also, like help them realize that the path they're going on is not like the best route. I think providing them with statistics, information, and just overall general information to help inform them, but also educate them. I know from personal experiences that hearing about the number of deaths that nicotine or vaping has caused, the number of chemicals used inside these products, and also like significant trends that make me want to pay attention more and also truly acknowledge like the harmful effects it actually has, rather than like seeing someone telling it to me, like actually seeing it with my two eyes. I also think that discipline is not always the best way to go to help someone who's struggling with an addiction to marijuana or nicotine. I know a lot of people who say that they use it to help them with like mental health problems, anxiety, but I feel like just comforting them, educating them, and just trying to understand their point of view and like their mindset is really important. Helping acknowledge like their faults, but also trying to help them improve, especially since they are still children. We're children, our minds are still growing. Their peers are becoming more influenced, and they're just growing up as a whole. I think children are growing and learning at such like a high rate, and the effects of nicotine and marijuana are like altering their brain. I think it's so important to acknowledge that you as adults or like parent allies to let them know that you're there to help them, not hurt them, provide your support with them, trying to help them. I'm just like maybe even doing like different practices to counsel them. I'm trying to understand their point of view, because at the end of the day, you just want them to know that you care and you care about their future. So like make sure that you make it known.
You've inspired me, sir. I want to do everything you just said. Thank you. Ahana, what you got?
I think the best way you can support somebody who you suspect is doing tobacco or cannabis products is don't just immediately jump to conclusion that they might be doing it in the first place. Ask them, check in with them, ask them what they're going through, or ask them what it is that they're struggling with. Because I think oftentimes if you're pointing fingers at somebody, they're bound to say no instead of feeling like you're gonna try to discipline them, try to open them up to it. Just ask them what is it that they're doing, why are they doing this? Maybe they have a reason for doing it, even though it's not right, they might know it's not right. they might not know that it is right or it's not right. So it's best to have an approach before you immediately jump to conclusions. Another thing is that I do think that you should be able to educate kids from the beginning, whether it's through trainings, programs, your school, or even like a parent to a kid talk, having an education on what you might be influenced growing up. Because some people might not even know what they're doing. They just do it because they see it going around and they're like, oh, it looks cool to do it. And they don't even know the effects of it because they're already so far gone and they've gotten addicted. It only takes one hit for somebody to really get addicted in the first place. And getting out of addiction can be rough. I do think that you also need to spend time with those who are doing it instead of just bashing them to be a bad person, because they're not a bad person for continuing to do something because of their addiction. It's the fact that they want to get out of it, but they're not able to. So if you're around them more and you're providing them with support, like Philip said, counseling is a huge thing that you could also do for your kids. They could get out of it before they lead into addictions that may cost them their life.
Oh, so much wisdom from a person who's more than half my age. Thank you. Thank you. Angie.
So many people turn to tobacco because they feel that they have no one to turn to for support, and parents and adults can change that. They can approach people with a supportive mindset. And it's really important not to be angry or place a blame on the young person suspected of using tobacco or cannabis. It can be difficult to understand what they're going through, so it's best to really help them and encourage them to talk to a trusted adult. And communication is really key to getting to the root of an issue. So once a young person trusts an adult, they're more likely to open up. And from then, adults can help find alternatives and solve the issue so kids can turn to adults instead of turning to vaping. And adults play a major role in a young person's life and can influence their actions. So it's really important to communicate, show kindness, and inspire kids to do what's best.
Thank you. And we love the input of our young people because they share from their perspective, which is helpful. So we try to keep those things in mind when we're working with our young people on campus as such. So thank you all for sharing. So in that, I want to add into what they said. Of course, I hope you're taking notes, adults. We have listened to them. I also want to give you some tips as a caring adult for working with young people who may be dealing with addiction. First off, you want to acquire knowledge about the brain development and such. So coming to this webinar is helpful, but you also want to check in on other resources to be able to research and find out, so when you talk to them, you can have valid reasons, because right now, just coming waving that finger saying, this is your brain on drugs, DARE program, just say no. No, it doesn't fly nowadays. There's so much internet information that they'll come back to you. There's times where I'm giving a presentation, and as I'm talking, a kid is Googling under their desk, coming up with an alternate argument. So you want to have information on how it matches up and how it addresses what that may be going through physiologically. And then explore personal values and such. You might want to have that thought process and what's okay when it comes to substance use, what's normalized. Our culture teaches something different. So you want to be able to present that to them and have an awareness of how it may look different from their lens, especially with this day and time that we live in. Talk early and often. I'm not going to say you have to do it in the crib, reading them a bedtime story and start talking about cannabis and vaping, but you do want to have it a little bit earlier than you probably expect, because they're going to get exposure pretty soon, especially on middle school campuses, sometimes at the end of elementary. That's why we try to catch our young people around 6th, 7th grade to give them valid information, not just one that they gain from their community or online, whatever that looks like. So you want to talk early and often, because sometimes you might have to come back around to kind of replace what they heard initially. And then reduce access at home. Like I said, when it comes to tobacco products and vaping products and cannabis products, they're all legal in California at the age of 21. And so sometimes we're finding that young people are subject to what parents use, and that crafts what they see about it. Now, it is something that adults can use legally, but it's not safe for young people with developing brains. So if you are using it at home, you got to be mindful of what you're projecting to your young person who may be around you. And then lastly, act quickly to respond, because mental health and substance abuse, those things go hand in hand. And that's why we touch on it, because we may not know what our young people are wrestling or battling with. So you want to give them the information, you want to talk to them, you want to be responsive to them. And as our Courage members express, coming in with a hard, heavy hand, talking about this is bad, you shouldn't be doing this, we're finding that young people just don't come back to their parents to talk. They go deeper into hiding. And this is different than like cigarettes and cigars where you smell it. They can conceal these pretty easily. So they may have been caught early on, but keep it going for years without the parent knowing. So be careful on how you engage them. Do it in a loving fashion. And I guarantee you'll have a good result, especially with an open door policy. And so in that, there are resources we supply or we offer or we know of. Some of these are the Contra Costa Crisis Center. Anybody, if you call 211 or text to that number, you can get referred with help and support for addiction as well as suicide prevention. Kiki, California, very quality program we recommend across the county for our people to use. And then if you're looking for information that's valid and consistently strong, we always go with our Stanford Tobacco Prevention Toolkit and Cannabis Awareness Toolkit. We actually use pieces of that in our curriculum working with our young people. So you need some information, go to his website. It's absolutely free. And I'll give a couple more seconds. If you want to take a screenshot, your phone, go right ahead, because you'll need to refer to these if you're working with young people who are using. Okay, if not, you have to watch the video playback. And it's in the chat. Oh, yeah, we get the starter pack. Yeah, if you're one of those adults that know how to talk to kids, we have an extra starter deck where you can have Let's Talk Tobacco. So you just read off the card, hey, young person whom I care about a lot, what do you know about tobacco? It's very easy to open up. So if that's not you to do on your own, contact us. We can get you a set of those starter card decks so you have the conversation with your young person. And then one other new resource we have is our new parent guide on substance use and mental health. This is awesome. One of our team members, Marissa Frias, her and a few other people were working on this. They came together with quality information. Presentation of it is easy to look up. So I recommend that you scan that QR code, go to get that, download it, and start working through the information, reading through it. It goes in much more detail than what we're covering tonight, as well as other substances connected to mental health. So I'll give y'all another couple seconds to get your scan on, QR code, or you can download it from the link. Look at us doing this all the way across. Man, I love our people. Okay, give you a couple more seconds. And then the last thing we're gonna land this plane. We're only a couple minutes past 7, but thank you for joining us and staying with us. Last thing, we're gonna ask you to participate in our survey. Just give a little bit of feedback on what you felt about tonight. Honestly, if you're like, oh, this is wonderful. Yay, we love the celebration. If you said it's wasting my time, it's okay. We'll learn to improve so we can make it better, because we want parent partners in this as we help support our young people. So take a couple seconds, do the survey if you can. Humor us with your input on how it went. It's also in the chat as well. And as you're filling out your survey, we're going to start to transition over to our Q&A time. So I'm going to give a couple more seconds to leave it on screen. But then if you want to hang around and you have any additional questions or some that might have come in during the presentation, we'll connect on those now. We'll answer those that weren't answered.